The massive space station hung in the darkness like a small moon, its lights blinking against the stars. Inside, thousands of beings, from hundreds of different worlds, moved through the corridors. Some walked on 2 legs, others on 4 or 6. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few glowed with soft light from within their transparent skin. This was Unity Station, the heart of the Galactic Consortium, and today it buzzed with unusual excitement. The Hunters Recruitment Summit happened only once every 5 years. It was the event where the bravest warriors from across known space gathered to join the fight against the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. The Apex Hunters were monsters from the dark spaces between galaxies, creatures that killed for sport and adapted to any weapon used against them. For 3,000 years, they had terrorized civilized worlds, and for 3,000 years, the Consortium's warriors had barely held them back. Ryan Hayes wiped the grease from his hands and looked at the repaired power conduit. The blue glow told him it was working properly now. He was good at fixing things. The complex machinery of alien technology made sense to him in a way that surprised his supervisors. But then again, nobody expected much from humans anyway. He stood up, his plain gray maintenance uniform marking him as one of the low-level workers on the station. At 6 feet tall, with brown hair and an average build, he looked unremarkable even by human standards. His face had the kind of weathered look that came from spending time in harsh conditions, but most aliens couldn't read human expressions well enough to notice. To them, he was just another soft-skinned creature from a newly discovered world. Humans had only made contact with the Consortium 3 years ago. Earth was still considered a curiosity, a planet of creative but physically weak beings who had somehow managed to build spacecraft despite having no natural advantages. No armored skin, no enhanced strength, no telepathic abilities. Just clever hands and stubborn minds. The Consortium had granted Earth a handful of apprentice positions, mostly in maintenance and engineering. It was the kind of charity given to species that showed promise, but clearly couldn't contribute to the real work of protecting the galaxy. Ryan didn't mind. He did his job, kept to himself, and learned everything he could about how this massive station worked. The other human apprentices scattered across Consortium space probably felt the same way. They were here to represent Earth, even if that meant scrubbing floors and fixing broken equipment. The corridor ahead suddenly filled with noise. Ryan pressed himself against the wall as a group of Korvaxian warriors marched past. Each one stood nearly 8 feet tall, their crystalline bone structure visible through their partially transparent skin. 4 powerful arms ended in hands that could crush metal, and their eyes glowed with an inner fire. They were magnificent and terrifying. The greatest warriors in known space. At the center of the group walked Princess Vera Alth. She was smaller than the male warriors, but somehow more intimidating. Her crystalline bones had a golden tint that marked her as royalty, and her armor was decorated with 3 red marks. Each mark represented an apex hunter she had killed in personal combat. At 23 years old, she was already a legend. Ryan kept his head down and waited for them to pass. But the princess stopped. "What is that?" Her voice was sharp and carried the kind of authority that expected instant answers. One of her guards followed her gaze. "A human, Your Highness." One of the maintenance workers. Vera Alth stepped closer, and Ryan could feel the heat radiating from her body. Korvaxians ran hot, their metabolism burning like a furnace to power their incredible strength. She looked him up and down with obvious distaste. "This is what Earth sends us? Look at it. Weak arms, soft skin, only 2 hands." She reached out with one of her lower arms and poked his shoulder. Like pressing on water-soaked bread. "Tell me, human, what use is your kind to the Consortium?" Ryan met her eyes briefly, then looked away. The guards laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound that echoed off the metal walls. "It speaks," Vera Alth said with mock surprise. "And it knows its place. The galaxy's janitors. How appropriate." She turned to her entourage. This is why humans will never be warriors. They have accepted their role as servants, without even the dignity to feel shame about it. Ryan said nothing. He had learned long ago that some battles weren't worth fighting. The princess wanted a reaction, wanted him to argue or defend his species. But why? She wasn't a threat to his mission. She was just making noise. Vera Alth seemed disappointed by his silence. "What is your name, janitor?" Ryan Hayes, Your Highness. I will not remember it." She waved a hand dismissively. "You are simply the apprentice to me. All of your kind are interchangeable and forgettable." The group moved on, their laughter fading as they turned a corner. Ryan waited until they were gone, then continued his work. He had 6 more conduits to repair before his shift ended. Over the next 3 days, the summit continued. Great warriors arrived from every corner of the consortium. The station's central plaza became a showcase of martial prowess as different species demonstrated their fighting techniques. Ryan watched sometimes during his breaks, impressed by the skill and strength on display. The Zenthi, with their blade-like arms, moved like dancing death. The Thorian giants could shatter stone with their fists, and the Korvaxians, led by Princess Vera Alth, moved with a grace that seemed impossible for beings so powerful. But the princess had decided that Ryan was her personal entertainment. Every time their paths crossed, she had a new insult ready. The human with paper skin, the 2-armed weakling, the apprentice who would never be more than a tool holder. Her guards laughed on cue, and other species began to take notice. Soon, the apprentice became a station-wide joke, the representative of humanity's best effort, and he couldn't even muster the courage to talk back to his betters. Ryan continued his work. He smiled politely when addressed, fixed what needed fixing, and spent his evenings in the small quarters assigned to maintenance workers. He read technical manuals, studied the station's layout, and sent weekly reports back to Earth about consortium technology and culture. On the 4th day of the summit, Ryan was assigned to repair a malfunctioning door in one of the diplomatic wings. As he worked, he overheard a conversation between 2 Zenthi officers. "The princess goes too far," one said. "The human does his work well. There is no honor in mocking someone for doing their duty. She is young and has won great victories." The other replied, "The young always mistake confidence for wisdom. She will learn." Ryan smiled to himself as he finished the repair. At least, someone understood. Not that it mattered. In 5 more days, the summit would end, and Princess Vera Alth would return to her empire. He would return to his work, and life would continue. He had no way of knowing that in less than 24 hours everything would change. The alarms would sound. The apex hunters would breach the station's defenses, and Princess Vera Alth would learn exactly what kind of creature humans really were. The ceremony hall was filled with representatives from 300 worlds. Banners hung from the high ceiling, each one displaying the colors and symbols of different species. At the front of the hall, the Consortium Council prepared to officially welcome the new recruits into the Hunter Corps. Princess Vera Alth stood with her squadron, their golden armor polished to perfection. This was her moment of glory, the recognition she had earned through blood and courage. Ryan was 2 levels below, in a maintenance tunnel that ran beneath the ceremony hall. The life support systems needed constant monitoring during large gatherings. Too many different species meant too many different atmospheric requirements. He checked the readings on his datapad and adjusted a valve. Everything looked stable. Then the alarms began. The sound was like nothing Ryan had heard before. It started as a low pulse that made his teeth ache, then rose to a shrieking wail that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Red lights flooded the tunnels. His datapad lit up with emergency messages in a dozen languages. The station's automated voice spoke in flat, emotionless tones. Perimeter breach detected. Apex Hunter signatures confirmed. All personnel proceed to designated safe zones. This is not a drill. Repeat. This is not a drill. Ryan's blood went cold. Apex hunters. Here, on Unity Station, the most heavily defended location in Consortium space. It should have been impossible. Above him, in the ceremony hall, chaos erupted. The carefully organized gathering dissolved into panic as species with different flight responses tried to evacuate through the same doors. Some ran. Others froze. A few of the warrior species immediately drew weapons and formed defensive positions. Princess Vera Alth's training took over. She barked orders to her squadron, her forearms gesturing sharply as she organized them into combat formation. North Corridor, defensive line. Protect the council members and civilians. Weapons to maximum power. The Korvaxian warriors moved with practiced efficiency. Within seconds, they had created a barrier of armored bodies between the main doors and the fleeing civilians. Vera Alth activated her plasma rifle, the weapon humming to life with a blue glow. The first apex hunter burst through the northern wall. It was 12 feet of nightmare made real. Its body was covered in black, chitinous plates that seemed to absorb light. 6 limbs, ending in blade-like appendages, struck the ground with metallic clicks. Its head was a mass of eyes and sensors that could detect everything from body heat to electrical signals. And it was fast. Impossibly fast for something so large. The Korvaxian warriors opened fire. Plasma bolts struck the creature's armor, burning black marks into its surface. The hunter shrieked, a sound that made several species in the hall collapse from the pure sonic trauma. But it kept coming. Vera Alth aimed for its leg joints, the weak points that all hunters shared. Her shots were precise, each one hitting exactly where she intended. The hunter stumbled, but adapted before her eyes. Its armor shifted and thickened around the joints. Within seconds, her shots were doing less damage. "Fall back," she screamed. "Rotating fire pattern. Don't let it adapt. Fall back." 2 more hunters breached from different directions. The ceremony hall became a war zone. Warriors from different species tried to coordinate, but they had never trained together. The Zenthi fought with grace, but alone. The Thorians charged with strength, but no strategy. And the hunters, these perfect predators, cut through them like they were nothing. Ryan felt the vibrations of combat through the floor above. His training kicked in before conscious thought could catch up. He grabbed his emergency kit and started moving, not away from the danger but toward it. His mind was already calculating angles, distances, weak points. His body remembered skills he hadn't used in 3 years. The maintenance tunnels connected to dozens of access points throughout the station. Ryan reached a junction where he could hear screaming and the sound of energy weapons. His datapad showed a secondary breach in the engineering bay, 3 corridors away from his current position. The bay had minimal security because it wasn't considered a priority target. Anyone trapped there would be defenseless. He changed direction and ran. The engineering bay's blast door had been torn open. Its reinforced metal peeled back like paper. Inside, Ryan could see a group of civilians huddled behind equipment racks. He recognized some of them. Kess, a young Korvaxian diplomat who had always been polite to him, Professor Daniel Chen, one of the other humans on the station, an elderly scientist who studied alien biology, a dozen others from various species, all frozen in terror. And stalking toward them was an apex hunter. This one was wounded. One of its blade limbs hung at an odd angle, and blue blood leaked from cracks in its armor. But wounded didn't mean weak. It moved with predatory focus, its sensors locked on the easy prey ahead. Ryan stepped through the torn doorway. The hunter's head snapped toward him, multiple eyes focusing. It clicked its mandibles together, a sound like metal scraping metal. Then it dismissed him as unimportant and turned back to the larger group. Bad decision. Ryan grabbed a plasma torch from his tool belt. It wasn't a weapon, just a cutting tool for repairs. It could burn at 3,000 degrees for about 30 seconds before overheating. Not much, but enough. He moved forward, and something in his posture made the hunter pause. Maybe it sensed something in the way he carried himself. Maybe it saw the absolute calm in his eyes. Predators recognized predators, even across species. The hunter lunged. Ryan didn't freeze, didn't panic, didn't try to run. He moved. His body flowed to the side, letting the blade limb pass within inches of his chest. Years of training made the motion automatic. In combat, hesitation meant death. Overthinking meant death. You moved on instinct, on muscle memory, on thousands of hours of practice, until violence became as natural as breathing. The plasma torch ignited. Ryan drove it into the joint, where the hunter's damaged limb connected to its body. The creature shrieked and spun, faster than anything that size should move. Ryan was already gone, rolled under another strike, came up on the hunter's blind side. The torch found another joint. Then, a cluster of eyes. The hunter's armor was adapting, trying to compensate. But Ryan wasn't using the same attack pattern. He struck high, then low, fast, then faster. Never where the creature expected. He had fought in desert cities where every corner hid an enemy, had trained to kill quickly and efficiently because ammunition was limited and backup was miles away, had learned that the difference between going home and going in a body bag was the willingness to do whatever it took to survive. The hunter tried to adapt to him like it adapted to weapons, but Ryan wasn't a weapon. He was a problem solver who had learned to solve problems that fought back. The torch found the creature's main sensory cluster. The hunter thrashed wildly, blind now, its clicks becoming frantic. Ryan stepped in close, inside the range where those blade limbs could strike effectively, and drove the torch into the base of its skull, where he knew the main neural cluster had to be. The apex hunter collapsed. Its limbs twitched twice, then went still. Ryan stepped back, breathing hard. The torch had overheated and died in his hand. He dropped it and looked at the group of civilians. They stared at him like he had just grown extra heads. Kes found her voice first. What are you?" Ryan wiped the blue blood from his face. His hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. "A maintenance worker," he said. "We should get to a secure location." Professor Chen stepped forward, his old eyes sharp despite his age. "Ryan. That shouldn't have been possible." Apparently it was. Ryan picked up his datapad. The tactical display showed the main battle still raging in the ceremony hall. 2 hunters still active. Multiple casualties. "We need to move. This area isn't safe," but it was already too late for secrets. The engineering bay had security cameras. And somewhere, in the station's command center, someone was watching the footage of a human apprentice killing an apex hunter in single combat, with nothing but a cutting torch and skills that shouldn't exist in a species the consortium had classified as non-threatening. The galaxy's understanding of humanity was about to change forever. Commander Alexis Vorn stood in the station's security center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the battle from dozens of angles. She was a Zenthi. Her natural blade arms retracted into sheaths along her forearms as she manipulated the controls. Her species was known for their tactical thinking, and right now, she needed every bit of that ability. The situation was bad. 1 hunter dead in the ceremony hall, but at the cost of 14 warriors. Another hunter had retreated into the station's upper levels, hunting isolated groups, and the third. She pulled up the footage again, watching it for the 5th time. A human. A maintenance worker. Killing an apex hunter with a tool. "Replay from angle 7, she commanded. The display shifted, showing Ryan's fight from a different camera. Vorn watched his movements. The way he anticipated the creature's attacks. The efficiency of every motion. This wasn't luck. This was training. Serious, professional, military-grade training. "Pull his file," she ordered. "Every piece of information we have on this human." Her assistant, a nervous Corvaxian named Trell, worked the console. Ryan Hayes, age 31. Earth origin. Continent called North America. Country called United States. Apprentice rating and maintenance engineering. 3 years with the consortium. No disciplinary issues. No combat training listed in his application. No combat training. No combat training. No combat training, Vorn repeated slowly. She watched the human dodge a blade strike that had killed trained warriors. That's a lie. Either he lied on his application, or someone didn't ask the right questions. In the ceremony hall, Princess Vera Alth fought with everything she had. Her armor was scored with cuts, and one of her lower arms hung limp. Around her, her squadron was down to half strength. The hunter in front of them had adapted to their plasma rifles, its armor now reflecting most of the shots. Her tactical display beeped. Incoming file from command. She risked a glance at the screen and froze. It was security footage. It showed. No. That was impossible. The apprentice. The weak human she had mocked. Moving like a warrior born. Killing an apex hunter. Your Highness, it's adapting to our fire pattern, one of her warriors shouted. Vera Alth shook her head, forcing herself to focus on the immediate threat. Questions could come later. Survival came first. Switch to kinetic rounds. Alternate fire. Back in the security center, Vorn had made a decision. Contact Earth. Priority channel. I need to speak with whoever handles their military. It took 6 minutes to establish the connection. The face that appeared on the screen was a middle-aged woman in a dark blue uniform. She had gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen too much combat. This is General Patricia Manning, United States Space Command. Commander Vorn, we received your emergency signal. What's your situation? When you're Mon 1. When you're Manning 17. We have Apex hunters on station, Vorn said bluntly. One of your people just killed one. In hand-to-hand combat. Ryan Hayes. I need to know what he really is. Manning's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Pull up his full file. The one we sent with his application. The military service section. There is no military service section. Then, you didn't request it. Manning leaned forward. Let me be clear. Commander, every human we sent to the consortium has military experience. Every single one. We sent our best people because this was first contact and we needed individuals who could handle unexpected situations. Vorn felt her blood run cold. How much experience? Hayes served 8 years in the Marine Corps. Enlisted at 18, made sergeant, saw combat in 3 major conflicts, specialized in close-quarters battle and urban warfare. 2 commendations for valor. When he left the service, he went into engineering because he wanted a quieter life. We recruited him for the space program because he had both skill sets. You sent us warriors and called them engineers. Manning shook her head. We sent you engineers who had been warriors. There's a difference. If you had asked about military service, we would have told you. But your application forms only asked about technical qualifications. We assumed that was what you wanted. Vorn pulled up the consortium's standard application form. Manning was right. The form asked about education, technical skills, and work history. It never specifically asked about military service, because the consortium had never encountered a species that separated military training from their overall education system. Most warrior species trained from childhood. The idea that someone could be a warrior, stop being a warrior, and become something else was foreign to them. How many humans in consortium space have this background? Vorn asked. All 47 of them. Different branches, different specialties, but all veterans. We weren't trying to deceive you, Commander. We just sent people who could adapt to whatever situations they encountered. Turns out that was the right call. The display showed another camera angle of Ryan's fight. Vorn studied it with new understanding. The movements made sense now. The calmness under pressure. The efficient violence. This was a trained soldier who had simply chosen not to tell anyone what he was capable of. I need his help, Vorn said. and the help of any other humans who can fight. We still have 2 hunters active on this station. Manning nodded. You have my authorization to activate any of our people. And Commander? You should know something about Earth. We're what's called a death world in most galactic classifications. Our planet tried to kill us for millions of years. We survived by becoming very good at killing back. The connection ended. Vorn immediately opened a station-wide channel. Ryan Hayes. This is Commander Vorn. Respond on Secure Channel 7. There was a pause. Then, Ryan's voice came through, calm, despite the chaos around him. This is Hayes. I'm in Engineering Bay 3 with a group of civilians. I know what you are now, Vorn said. I know what all of you are. I'm giving you a field commission with full authority. I need you to gather every human on this station and stop those hunters. Another pause. Longer this time. Ma'am, I'm not sure that's a good idea. We're not here in a military capacity. You're here in whatever capacity I need you to be. Those hunters have killed 47 people in the last 20 minutes. They'll kill hundreds more. Before we can evacuate. I've seen the footage, Hayes. You know how to fight these things. Will you help us, or not? Ryan's response was quiet. Yes, ma'am. But I need access to the armory and communication with the other humans. And, Commander, you need to understand something. If we do this, we do it our way. Not Korvaxian tactics, not Zenthi tactics. Our way. Agreed. Sending you clearance codes now. Vera Alth listened to this exchange over the command channel. Part of her wanted to object, to argue that untrained civilians would just create more casualties. But she had seen the footage too, and more importantly, she was losing. Pride meant nothing if everyone died. Ryan's voice came over the tactical network, speaking in English. The station's translator rendered it into all languages simultaneously. All human personnel. This is Hayes. Emergency activation. Report to Armory 6 with whatever gear you have. We've got hunters on station, and we're going to do what we were trained to do. Across Unity Station, in maintenance tunnels and engineering bays and supply rooms, 46 other humans heard that message. They looked at the tools in their hands, at the simple uniforms they wore, and they remembered what they used to be. Sophie Grant set down her welding torch. Jake Morrison closed the cargo manifest he'd been checking. Ben Carter stopped rewiring a circuit panel. One by one, they moved toward the armory. And with each step they shed the role they had been playing for 3 years. They weren't apprentices anymore. Vera Alth watched her tactical display as heat signatures moved through the station. 7 humans, converging on a single point. She expected fear. Hesitation. The normal response of civilians, called to fight. Instead, their movements were purposeful, coordinated. They were already thinking, tactically. Your Highness, one of her warriors said, the hunter is advancing. We cannot hold this position much longer. Vera Alth looked at the creature that had decimated her squadron. Then she looked at the display showing 7 humans arming themselves. The galaxy had underestimated them. She had underestimated them. That mistake had nearly cost her everything. Time to see what humanity really was. Armory 6 was a small weapons cache designed for security personnel. 7 humans stood among the racks of alien weapons, quickly checking each piece for functionality. They moved with the practiced efficiency of people who had done this 1,000 times before. Ryan held up a consortium standard rifle. It was heavier than the weapons he had trained with on Earth, but the basic principles were the same. Point, aim, fire. He checked the charge pack and nodded. These will work. Grab extra charges and anything that can provide cover or concealment. Jake Morrison was the tallest of the group. Built like a tank with close-cropped black hair, he had been Army Rangers before becoming a cargo specialist. I've got 3 smoke grenades. Zenthi manufacture. but the dispersal pattern should be similar to what we used. Sophie Grant tested a smaller rifle, her movements quick and precise. Navy Special Operations had taught her to be efficient with every motion. Her red hair was tied back in a tight bun, her green eyes already calculating angles and approaches. "Commander, what's our tactical situation?" Ryan pulled up the station map on a wall display. The other in the upper residential levels, hunting civilians. Station security is evacuating people, but taking heavy casualties. Ben Carter cracked his knuckles. He was shorter than the others, but moved with a controlled intensity that spoke of the Marine Corps training that had shaped him. "We can't be in two places at once. We need to prioritize." "The ceremony hall," Lisa Yamamoto said. She had been an Air Force combat controller, coordinating airstrikes and ground forces. Her analytical mind was already working through the problem. If that hunter breaks through, it reaches the evacuation zones. More casualties. Plus, we have Allied forces already engaged there. Kyle Brooks loaded his rifle with quick, practiced movements. "We trap it," said Megan Delaney. She was checking the scope on a long-range weapon. Her movements gentle despite the deadly tool in her hands. Marine Corps sniper training had taught her patience and precision. Upper residential levels mean lots of corridors and rooms. We can control the environment. Unquote. We can control the environment. Alex Reeves, the quietest of the group, finally spoke. Special Forces had taught him to think 3 steps ahead. We need to understand how these things hunt. What are their patterns? Ryan called up the security footage of all 3 hunters. The group watched in silence, their trained eyes catching details that most people would miss. "They adapt to weapons," Sophie said. "But adaptation takes time. If we vary our attack methods constantly, it can't compensate." "And they hunt like pack predators," Jake added. "See how they coordinate? When one is engaged, the others try to flank. But there are only 2 now, and they're separated. We can use that." Ryan made a decision. "Sophie, Megan, Alex, you take the upper levels. Set a trap for that hunter. Use the environment. Be creative. The rest of us hit the ceremony hall and support Vera Alth's people." They moved out in 2 teams, weapons ready. And the station's security cameras tracked their progress. In the command center, Vorn watched with growing fascination. The humans didn't rush toward danger like Korvaxian warriors seeking glory. They moved carefully, checking corners, covering each other's movements. It was different from any military doctrine she had seen. "They fight like they expect ambush," Trell observed. "Like they expect death from any direction. Because on their world, that's exactly what they face," Vorn replied. She had been reading the files on Earth that General Manning had sent. The information was terrifying. A world where humans competed with creatures that could crush them, outrun them, and ambush them from sea, land, and air. A world where other humans were often the greatest threat. Humanity had evolved in an environment where paranoia meant survival. In the ceremony hall, Vera Alth's squadron was down to 4 warriors. The hunter had adapted to their plasma rifles, its armor now reflecting 70% of their shots. It stalked toward them with the confidence of a predator that knew its prey was finished. Then the lights went out. Emergency lighting flickered on, painting everything in dim red. The hunter's sensors swept the room, tracking heat signatures. It detected the Korvaxian warriors ahead and moved forward. Something struck its left leg joint. Not a plasma bolt. Something physical that exploded on impact, burning with chemical fire. The hunter shrieked and spun. Another impact on its right side, then its rear. It couldn't adapt to attacks from multiple directions at once. The lights came back on. 4 humans had positioned themselves at the corners of the room, creating a crossfire pattern. They weren't using the same weapon. Ryan had a plasma rifle. Jake had a kinetic shotgun. Ben and Kyle had chemical explosives. 4 different attack types. Coordinated timing. "Now!" Ryan shouted. Concentrated fire on the sensor cluster. All four opened fire on the same target. The hunter tried to protect its sensors, raising its blade limbs to shield them. That's when Vera Alth and her warriors struck from behind, their shots hitting the exposed joints that the creature had uncovered to defend itself. The hunter staggered. Its adaptive armor was trying to compensate for 5 different threats at once, and failing. It was designed to fight honorable warriors who attacked from one direction. Not this coordinated chaos. Smoke! Jake threw his grenades. Thick clouds filled the hall, breaking the hunter's sensor lock. It clicked frantically, trying to locate its enemies. Ryan moved through the smoke like a ghost. His training in urban warfare had included fighting in conditions where you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. He counted steps, remembered the room layout, trusted his memory over his eyes. The hunter's clicking told him exactly where it was. He emerged from the smoke right beside it and fired point-blank into the wound Vera Alth's warriors had created. The hunter's armor couldn't adapt fast enough at this range. The shot burned through into its internal organs. The creature fell, its limbs thrashing. Ben and Kyle fired the killing shots, making sure it stayed down. The smoke cleared. Vera Alth stared at the 4 humans who had just saved her squadron. They stood calmly, checking their weapons, ready for the next threat. Like this was routine for them. "Status?" Ryan asked into his communicator. Sophie's voice came back. "We're in position. Upper residential level, Section 9. Hunter is approaching. We've got surprises ready." On the upper levels, the second Apex Hunter moved through the corridors, following the trail of fleeing civilians. Its sensors detected 3 life signs ahead, hiding in what looked like a dead-end corridor. Easy prey. It moved forward, blade limbs ready to strike. Then the floor gave way. The humans had found a maintenance hatch that led to a lower level. They had removed the supports and covered it with thin material. The hunter fell 20 feet into a storage room below. Before it could recover, the ceiling above collapsed. Not naturally. Sophie and Alex had rigged support beams to fall, using timed charges. Tons of metal and equipment crashed down onto the creature. It wasn't dead. Its armor protected it from the crushing weight. But it was pinned, unable to move its limbs. That's when Megan fired. 1 shot. A plasma bolt through the eye cluster, angled perfectly to reach the brain. The hunter died without understanding what had killed it. "Target down," Megan reported. Her voice was calm. "Professional." Moving to regroup with primary team. In the command center, Vorn watched both kills with dawning understanding. The Korvaxians fought with strength and courage, meeting their enemies head-on. The Zenthi fought with grace and skill, turning combat into art. But humans fought to win. They used ambushes, traps, misdirection. Overwhelming force applied at critical moments. They fought like creatures that had learned winning was the only thing that mattered. "Get me General Manning again," Vorn ordered. When the connection opened, Vorn spoke without preamble. "Your people just killed 2 Apex Hunters using tactics I've never seen before. Where did you learn to fight like this?" "2. Manning smiled grimly. "Commander, we've been fighting each other for our entire history. We've had 10,000 years to perfect the art of killing things that are trying to kill us. When you put humans in danger, we don't just fight back. We solve the problem. Permanently." Vera Alth stood among the bodies of the fallen, watching the 4 humans as they helped her wounded warriors. Ryan was applying a medical pack to one of her squadron members, with gentle, careful hands, the same hands that had killed an Apex Hunter. She walked over to him. "You let me mock you. For days. You said nothing." Ryan looked up. "You weren't a threat. Why would I respond? But you are a warrior. I can see it now. You could have defended your honor." "Honor?" Ryan stood up, and there was something ancient in his eyes. "Your Highness, I've seen what happens when people fight over honor. It's just another word for pride, and pride gets people killed. I didn't come here to prove anything. I came here to do a job. And when the hunters came, then I did what I was trained to do. Because that's a different job. One I'm also good at. Vera Alth felt something shift in her understanding of the universe. She had thought strength was obvious, displayed openly, like her crystalline bones, or the Zenthi's blade arms. But humans hid their strength under soft skin and quiet words. They were predators who had learned to look like prey. It was the most terrifying thing she had ever encountered. The medical bay was filled with the wounded. Doctors from a dozen species worked to save those they could and comfort those they couldn't. The final casualty count was grim. 63 dead, over 100 injured. It could have been worse. Much worse. And everyone on the station knew why it wasn't. Ryan sat in a corner, cleaning his rifle with methodical care. His hands moved automatically, a habit from years of service. You took care of your equipment, and your equipment took care of you. The other humans were scattered around the medical bay, helping where they could. Sophie was assisting with triage. Jake was moving supplies. Ben and Kyle were reinforcing damaged sections of the bay in case of another attack. Commander Vorn entered, her blade arms carefully sheathed to appear non-threatening. She walked over to Ryan and sat down on a supply crate across from him. "The Consortium Council wants to meet with you," she said. "All of you. They have questions." Ryan didn't look up from his work. "I imagine they do. They're calling it a miracle. 7 maintenance workers defeating 3 apex hunters with minimal support. Some are calling it impossible. A few are suggesting the humans had advanced knowledge of the attack." Now Ryan looked at her. "We didn't. We just responded to the threat using our training. That's what I told them." Vorn watched his hands move over the weapon. "General Manning sent me more files. About Earth. About human history. I've spent the last 4 hours reading about your wars. We're not proud of that. You should be." Vorn leaned forward. "My species evolved on a peaceful world. We developed blade arms for cutting plants. Not fighting. We learned combat as an art form, a discipline. But your species, has been at war since before you had written language. You've fought over territory, resources, ideas, pride. You've developed 10,000 different ways to kill each other. And somehow, you survived it all. Onam. Gene Zabauta. 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 Barely, Ryan said quietly. And we're trying to do better. That's why we reached for the stars. To find something beyond our conflicts. But you brought your warriors with you. We brought survivors. There's a difference." Ryan set the rifle aside. "Every human here has seen combat. We know what it costs. We don't glorify it like some species do. We just understand that sometimes, when people are in danger, someone has to step up." Princess Vera Alth had been standing in the doorway, listening. She entered the medical bay now, and other patients grew quiet. Her golden crystalline bones were cracked in several places, her armor dented and scorched. But she walked with her head high. As befitted royalty, she stopped in front of Ryan. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. Then, slowly, deliberately, she knelt. Her forearms spread in a gesture of profound respect. "I ask forgiveness," she said. "I mocked you. I called you weak. I called your species unworthy. I was wrong. Deeply, shamefully wrong." Ryan stood up, uncomfortable with the display. "Your Highness, you don't need to do this. I do." Vera Alth looked up at him. "In my culture, we value strength above all else. We thought we understood what strength meant. But you showed me something I had never considered. True strength isn't about showing everyone what you can do. It's about knowing what you can do and choosing when to do it. You let me insult you because you understood I was no real threat. You saved me and my squadron because you understood the hunters were. That is wisdom I do not possess." She stood, and Ryan saw tears in her eyes. Korvaxians rarely showed such emotion. I want to learn from you. From your people. If you will teach me. Ryan glanced at Commander Vorn, who nodded slightly. I'm not a teacher, Your Highness. I'm just someone who survived long enough to learn a few things. Then teach me to survive, to think like you think, to fight like you fight. Sophie walked over, having finished helping a wounded Zenthi. She's not the only one who wants to learn. Commander Vorn told us, the Council is proposing a new training program, Human Combat Doctrine, to be integrated into consortium military education. Ryan felt a weight settle on his shoulders. We didn't come here to turn the galaxy into warriors. No, Vorn said. You came here as engineers and scientists. But the galaxy is a dangerous place. The apex hunters are just one threat among many. What you showed us today is that there's another way to fight. Not charging forward with honor, but thinking 3 steps ahead. Not seeking glorious combat, but ending threats efficiently. The consortium needs that knowledge. Jake joined them, followed by the other humans. They formed a loose circle, and Ryan could see the same exhaustion in their eyes that he felt. They had all left this life behind, or tried to. Now it was pulling them back. What do we tell them? Ben asked. The Council. What do they need to know about us? Ryan thought about Earth, about the world that had shaped them all. A planet where everything was a threat, where survival meant constant adaptation, where humanity had clawed its way to the top of the food chain through sheer stubborn refusal to die. They had learned to make tools, to organize, to plan, to kill more efficiently than anything nature had ever created. And then, finally, they had learned to look up at the stars and dream of something better. We tell them the truth, Ryan said, that we're not special. We're not super soldiers or perfect warriors. We're just people who come from a very hard world, and we learn to be very good at surviving it. We're willing to share what we know, but they need to understand something. Violence is a tool, not a solution. The goal isn't to be better killers. The goal is to protect people, so they don't have to become killers themselves. The Consortium Council meeting happened 3 days later. The Great Chamber was filled with representatives from member species, all of them wanting to see the humans who had changed everything. Ryan and the others stood before the council, still wearing their maintenance uniforms because they had nothing else. The council leader, an ancient being of living crystal, spoke in resonating tones. The consortium thanks you for your service in defending Unity Station. 63 lives were lost. But our analysts estimate that without your intervention, casualties would have exceeded 500. You have shown us that humanity possesses skills we did not recognize. The question now is what place humanity should hold in our organization. Ambassador Claire Patterson stood to speak. She was a former diplomat who had taken the role of Earth's representative. The consortium offered us apprentice positions, and we accepted gratefully. But we sent our best people, because first contact is too important to trust to the inexperienced. Every human in consortium space is a volunteer who wanted to represent Earth well. They happen to be veterans because, on our world, we have a tradition of service. People who join the military often develop skills in leadership, problem-solving, and remaining calm under pressure. Those same skills make excellent engineers, scientists, and diplomats. You sent warriors disguised as civilians, one council member accused. No, Patterson replied firmly. We sent civilians who used to be warriors. There's an enormous difference. These people chose to leave military service. They wanted peaceful careers, but when danger threatened, they remembered their training. That's not deception. That's being prepared. The debate went on for hours. Some council members wanted humans immediately promoted to military positions. Others argued for more oversight. A few suggested that Earth was too dangerous to fully integrate into the consortium. Finally, Vera Alth stood to speak. As a hunter-killer and princess, her voice carried weight. I have a proposal. I formally request assignment to a new program, the Human Integration Corps. Let humans teach those who wish to learn. Not to turn us into copies of them, but to expand our understanding of combat, tactics, and survival. I volunteer to be the first student. The chamber erupted in discussion. The idea was unprecedented. A Korvaxian princess asking to be taught by a species they had considered inferior? But Vera Alth stood firm, her cracked bones a testament to how close she had come to death, and how the humans had saved her. The vote was close, but it passed. Earth was granted full member status in the consortium. The 47 humans currently in service were offered positions in the new Integration Corps, teaching combined with their current duties. It was voluntary. They could refuse and continue as engineers and scientists. Ryan stood in the observation deck that night, looking at the stars. The others joined him one by one, until all 7 who had fought together stood in silence. So, Sophie said eventually, "Do we do it? Do we become teachers?" "We already are teachers," Lisa replied. "We just taught the galaxy that humanity isn't to be underestimated. Now they want lessons on purpose instead of by accident." "I don't want to create warriors," Ben said. "I've seen enough war." "We won't be creating warriors," Kyle countered. "We'll be teaching survivors. There's a difference. These people face real threats. We can help them face those threats smarter." Megan, who had spoken least during their entire time on station, said something that made them all pause. "We spent years learning to fight. Maybe we can spend the rest of our lives teaching peace. You don't learn to defend yourself because you want violence. You learn because you want violence to be unnecessary. If we teach them to be effective defenders, maybe fewer people have to die." Violence. Ryan thought about the bodies in the medical bay. The warriors who had fought bravely but ineffectively. The civilians who had been helpless. Then he thought about Earth and every human on it, living their lives under the protection of people who had learned to defend them. "We vote," he said. "Everyone decides for themselves. But I'm staying. I'm going to teach them, not how to be human warriors, but how to think like problem solvers who happen to face violent problems." One by one, they all agreed. The engineers who were warriors, who were now teachers. In her quarters, Princess Vera Alth stood before a mirror, looking at her cracked bones. They would heal stronger, as Korvaxian bones always did. But the cracks themselves would remain visible, permanent reminders of the day she learned humility. She had spent her life believing that strength was obvious, displayed in armor and weapons and fearless charges into battle. Now, she understood that the most dangerous predator was the one you never saw coming, the one who looked weak until the moment they needed to be strong. Humans were apex predators who had learned to pretend they weren't. They were warriors who had learned to value peace. They were survivors from a world that had tried to kill them in every possible way, and they had responded by reaching for the stars with gentle hands that could form fists when necessary. The galaxy would never underestimate them again. And somewhere on a blue world called Earth, billions of humans went about their daily lives, never knowing that 7 of their kind had just changed the course of galactic history. They worked and laughed and loved and dreamed. These quiet predators, these reluctant warriors, these people who had looked at a universe full of danger and decided to explore it anyway. That was the true strength of humanity. Not that they could fight, but that they chose when to fight, and when to show mercy, that they could be both the apprentice fixing a broken conduit and the warrior who killed to protect others, that they understood the greatest victory wasn't defeating your enemies. It was building a world where enemies didn't need to exist. Ryan Hayes looked out at the stars one more time, then turned back to his friends, his fellow survivors, his family forged in fire. "Let's get to work," he said. "We've got a lot to teach them, and maybe along the way, they'll teach us something too." The apprentices had become masters, and the galaxy would be better for it.